Thank you. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the May regular meeting of the Toronto District School Board. Can I ask everyone to please stand? I would like to acknowledge that this meeting is situated upon traditional territories. Nous reconnaissons que nous sommes accueillis sur les terres des Mississauga, des Anishinaabe, de la Confédération Haudenosaunee et du Wendat. Nous voulons également reconnaître la pérennité de la présence des Premières Nations, des Métis et des Inuits. And now for our national anthem. Can we please play the video? Thank you, everyone. Please be seated. Trustee Patel, can we just confirm that you have just joined?
I'm here, Madam Chair.
Wonderful, thank you. Are there any other trustees that may have joined since we did roll call? Okay, thank you very much. Can I have a mover and a seconder to approve the agenda? Not yet. So I have Trustee Williams and Trustee Rajakulisingam. Thank you. All in favor, we'll do this by a show of hands. Any opposed? And that carries. Okay, so we are going to begin with our celebrations for board activities. This evening we have trustees Lee, Patel, Gose, and Shan, who will start celebrations off tonight by speaking about Asian Heritage Month at the TDSB.
Madam Chair, to our board colleagues and everyone who's listening, I am very humbled to speak about Asian Heritage Month today. And as we know, we are a very diverse board, and I appreciate that Asian heritage is just one of the many different heritage months that we celebrate here at the board. Today, I want to start this segment by just highlighting, the diverse nature of what we celebrate in terms of Asian Heritage Month. We know that in February, we celebrated Chinese Heritage Month during the Lunar New Year period. So I won't mention the Chinese culture again, but I do want to mention four other very important cultures that make up Asia, or what we call East Asia and Southeast Asia. We have students from Japan in the TDSB, and I'm very happy to say that the Japanese culture has been a part of Canada since 1877. And this is a group of Canadians that have gone through a lot in our country. For example, during the Second World War, our country internalized sent Japanese folks of Japanese descent to internment camps because we were afraid that they were going to be disloyal to their country. And not only did we do that, we also confiscated their property and sold it and kept some of the profits for the transaction cost. And in the same time, we also charged our Japanese folks, our folks of Japanese descent, fees for living in the internment camps after we sold their property. I'm very proud to say that the Canadian government apologized to our Japanese Canadians for this action, but I hope the experiences of Japanese Canadians are never, ever repeated against any other groups of Canadians or anyone else ever again. Also happy to say that we have a good number of students from Korea, the Korean Peninsula in our school board. The Korean community within Canada is actually very, very strong. And I just look through the notes that I'm looking at. There are too many words here. I should have made it more concise, but there are over 217,000 Canadians of Korean descent living in Canada today. And this is all because we adopted our latest immigration policy in the 1970s that welcomed immigrants and that allowed these very, very important members of our community to come to Canada and build their lives here. In addition to that, we also have students of Filipino and Southeast Asian descent. For example, our Filipino community came to Canada in the 1990s based on work visas, and they are a huge, huge part of very important industries in Canada, making up, and I'm quoting Canada.ca, almost 30% of our personal care industry when it comes to workforce. And also in addition, for our Southeast Asian students, Canada's immigration policy once again allowed these very important members of our society to come and be a part of this great country. And I'm very proud to say that during a time of need, Canada actually took on the highest number per capita of existing citizens of refugees from this region during the late 1970s. So that was, I think, a very helpful thing to do. So I'll conclude my comments here, as I'm sure our colleagues have more to say about this very important celebration. And thank you very much.
Trustee Patel, I believe you're next, followed by Trustee Gose.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Trustee Gose is going to go first, Madam Chair.
Okay, sure. So Trustee Gose, please go ahead, and then Trustee Patel will wrap up.
Hello, everyone. So this month, the Toronto District School Board proudly organizes and celebrates the diverse Asian community within our student body, making up more than 40% of our students. We have actively embraced the theme of joining our table, celebrating Asian Canadians. Through a range of engaging events, performances, and educational resources during the month of May, our TDSB students enthusiastically participated in a poster contest, which portrayed the vibrancy of Asian culture in Toronto and Canada. You'll see the winning posters from our elementary, middle, and secondary schools on the screen.
Thank you very much. Those are lovely. Trustee Patel?
I think Malika is not done yet, Trustee Chair. Chair.
We're not hearing any sound from Trustee Gose. So I'm not sure if there's a technical.
Sorry, I muted myself by accident.
I can't.
Can you hear me?
Okay, yes, we can hear you now. Please go ahead.
Sorry, I don't know, I muted by accident. Students also enjoyed movie nights and had access to educational materials that highlighted the significant contributions of Asian Canadians to our province and country. I take immense pride in commemorating Asian Heritage Month at the Toronto District School Board. Throughout the month of May, our students and staff have had the incredible opportunity to explore and immerse themselves in various aspects of Asian culture, including film, art, and dance. I am thrilled to announce we hosted an author reading by Nug N. Karen Davis, who shared her book, Green Papayas, featuring illustrations by Jillian Newland. Green Papayas is a universal story that beautifully intertwines past and present, gently developing into profound topics such as dementia, elder care, immigration, and war, and all while celebrating the importance of family. We were privileged to have hosted our career panel discussion with esteemed individuals representing different fields. We heard from professional chef Eva Chin, dancer Shireen Lada, and artist/academic Dr. Marissa Largo. Their insights and experiences were undoubtedly inspired and empowered to our students.
Thank you,
Mr. Patel
Trustee
will
Bose.
continue.
To provide our elementary students with an immersive experience, we organized a dance workshop across the entire school system, offering the opportunity to learn various dance styles from different Asian cultures. Madam Chair, over the past few weeks, we have been actively spotlighting Asian Canadian artists, athletes, authors, and academics through daily announcements and tweets, ensuring that educators and students across the system have the opportunity to delve deeper into richness of Asian heritage. Lastly, we proudly hosted an Asian Heritage Month virtual launch, which was live streamed across the entire school system. During this event, our director, chair, and system superintendent, executive lead, Peter Chan, emphasized the importance of Asian Heritage Month, fostering unity and understanding within our diverse community. The virtual event was a great success and launch of Asian Heritage Month here at TBSB. Thank you for joining us on this remarkable journey of cultural celebration and appreciation. Have a good evening, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, trustees. That was so informative. To learn more about Jewish Heritage Month, which is also happening this month, trustees Laskin, Lilka Rotman, and I will say a few words. Trustee Laskin, over to you.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I'm wondering if the slide presentation could be presented. If we can start at the beginning, that would be helpful. Thank you very much. And we can go to the next slide. I first want to acknowledge the Jewish Heritage Committee, which is made up now of over 200 staff across the organization, including the 3 trustees you'll hear about tonight. The committee is supported by our executive sponsor, Superintendent Ronnie Felsen. And since its inception in 2015, the Jewish Heritage Committee activities have always been focused on teaching and learning in classrooms with student-centered. We aim to celebrate Jewish heritage, culture, and impactful, innovative, and inspirational ways, with the fight against anti-Semitism in all its forms providing the core goal of this work. The 11-person executive, who all have subcommittees they run, such as Student Voice, Holocaust Education, the Jewish Committee website, showcase the committee's work. And we also run a Twitter account, and I hope you will please follow us. On May 18th, the Toronto Police Service released their 2022 hate crime statistical report that provides data around criminal offenses that are committed against persons or property motivated by bias, prejudice, or hate based on the victim's race, nationality or ethnic origin, language, color, religion, sex, age, mental or physical disability, sexual or gender orientation or expression, or any other similar factor. In 2022, hate crimes targeting members of the Jewish community, Black community, and the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgendered, queer, and two-spirit communities were the most common types of reported hate. Jews were subject to more hate crimes than any other group in Toronto in 2022. 26% of all hate crimes reported were against Jews, who only make up 3.4% of Toronto's population. And although hate crimes in total are down by 6%, they're up by 14% against Jews. And as such, educating against hate is key to what we do. Last year, the ministry gave funding to both the Friends of Simon Wiesenthal and the Center for Israel and Jewish Affairs to develop curriculum and lesson plans for teachers to use in classrooms to combat anti-Semitism. Thank you to all the teachers and educators in our equity department who's involved in this work. The Jewish Heritage Committees provided guidance on each of these documents. And it's important to note that the Unlearn Anti-Semitism from CJA for middle schools is actually a series of animated shorts based on real-life situations that have occurred at TDSB schools, and it has an accompanying teacher and parent guide. In November, in collaboration with the Equity Department and the Center of Excellence for Black Student Achievement, we screened the film Periphery for almost 1,600 students. Periphery is about ethnic diversity in the Jewish community in Toronto and invites us to appreciate the richness of Jewish identity and cultural expression while illustrating the feeling of grappling or belonging. In January 2023, we invited the schools who participated an opportunity to enhance their learning by using the accompanying curriculum in their classes through independent projects, initiatives, and classroom learning. In December, we held a Hanukkah party that brought together Jewish student groups from 12 of our high schools. The chair and the director attended, and we were very proud. And we believe it's the start of an important network of Jewish student groups at our high schools, many of whom had already had Jewish student associations, culture clubs, etc., and they can inspire and support each other. Most proudly, the Friends of Simon Wiesenthal Center for Holocaust Studies recognized Sherry Schwartzmaltz, Toronto District School Board's Media Relations and Issues Manager and voluntary chair of our Jewish Heritage Committee, on January 26 for her demonstration of excellence in Holocaust education, not only for her passion, but for the countless events she has initiated and programs that have had a tremendous and lasting impact on students, their families, and her colleagues alike. Sherry's chaired our Jewish Heritage Committee since its inception. And of course, we're aware there continues to be incidents of anti-Semitic hate at some of our schools, mostly at middle schools, largely Nazi swastika graffiti, Nazi salutes, and hateful words. And as we've said all along, it's not enough to punish the perpetrators and support the victims. There must be education in the classrooms for all students. And as such, we continue to work with our community partners, such as Caring Testimony, for bringing in speakers, books, workshops, and other programs directly to the impacted schools and any school that expresses interest. Referrals for these resources can be made at any time through our Equity Department. And now I'd like to pass to Trustee Alexandra Luckel-Rotman.
For Holocaust Remembrance Day, we brought in Pinchas Guder, Holocaust survivor and contributor to the Azrieli Foundation's The Holocaust Survivor Memoirs program and USC Shoah Foundation's Eyewitness Dimensions in Testimony to speak to thousands of students through a virtual link from our boardroom for International Holocaust Remembrance Day on January 27th. And we brought thousands of grades 6 to 8 students across Canada virtually and over 4,000 in attendance for a live theatrical performance based on the best-selling book, The Children of Willesden Lane, which tells the story of the power of music and how one teenage refugee, Lisa Yura, held on to her dreams, survived the Holocaust, and inspired a generation. A few months ago, I had the opportunity, one of my elementary middle schools at Dublin Heights, they actually took this book and they did a sort of museum in their library that they opened to the public, and you could just see how much deep learning had really happened, all the different projects and presentations that they had done. And it was really amazing to actually see the kids talk about this experience that they had. And it was really, really impactful. And that's just one example of one school. And we brought 4,000 students to see it, which was incredible. For younger students, grades 2 to 5, we facilitated the video link to author Mona Golubeck reading the children's book version of The Children of Williston Lane, Hold On to Your Music. The Jewish Heritage Committee is pleased to be involved in the creation of the board's anti-Semitism strategy. We believe it is critical to be responsive to the voices of communities by developing tailored action plans, each based on the pillars of the anti-hate and anti-racism strategy. And lastly, as some of you are aware, Toronto will have a brand new Holocaust Education Museum opening on June 9th, just a few weeks. It will be open to field trips in September. Members of our Jewish Heritage Committee, Holocaust Education Subcommittee, have provided input along the way. So this is really, really exciting. It is my honor to now pass to Chair Rachel Chernoslin to speak about our main event this year.
Thank you. This year, the TDSB is pleased to be presenting a new and exciting experiential learning opportunity to TDSB's grade 8 and grade 10 students as part of Jewish Heritage Month. Through an exciting partnership and supported by a grant from the Ministry of Education, the TDSB's Jewish Heritage Committee and the Italian Heritage Committee have joined forces to mark the 90th anniversary of the Christie Pitts Riot, the largest race riot in Canadian history. Through an interactive play with actors depicting historical events, students learn about the Christie Pitts Riot, one of the worst outbreaks of ethnic violence in Canadian history, that saw hundreds of participants join the fight and thousands more sit as bystanders watching the events unfold. Next slide, please. I had the pleasure of attending one of the first performances last week. The Hogtown Collective, who wrote and directed the play, tell the story of how in early 1933, anti-Semitism and white supremacy were on the rise, not only in Europe, but in Toronto, where Jews were denied access to many public venues, and Nazi clubs were gaining momentum in areas of Toronto, such as Kew Beach. The Christie Pitts riot, in particular, was sparked by Nazi-inspired youth flying a Nazi swastika flag at a public baseball game in 1933, in a move that was intended to antagonize and provoke Jewish Torontonians. In a powerful message of solidarity, the Toronto Italian community stood in solidarity with Toronto's Jewish community and fought back together against the white supremacist Nazi-inspired swastika clubs in what became later known as the Christie Pitts riot. While we don't condone violence or encourage rioting, the message of solidarity and alliance against hate and anti-Semitism is a powerful one for our students. It is also a reminder to our students that although we may have differences, we also have much in common. And even more importantly, share a deep responsibility to look after each other and ensure we are all respected, included, and cared for and feel safe. The importance of experiences like the one being provided for students of the TDSB, as well as neighboring boards, is a powerful one for students. If we can do this in our schools, and if others can too, the impact will be felt in our schools, our community, our city, our country, and throughout the world. This is not something we can do alone. And I am grateful to all those in our schools and beyond who are working to create a safer, more peaceful world and a more inclusive world. Next slide, please. To the many staff who have worked on the Jewish Heritage Committee and the Italian Heritage Committee to make the Christie Pitts Riot's experiential learning possible, a huge thank you. This is a project that was in the works for over a year, and to see it come to fruition is no small feat. So to all the committed educators on both committees who have made this happen, and to the executive of the JHC and Sherry Schwartz-Maltz, who spearheaded this one from the beginning, please know the hard work is very much appreciated. These are the kind of experiences students remember and that tie into their curriculum and personal growth learning in so many important ways. Performances are running Monday through Thursdays at 10 a.m. and 1:15 p.m. every week through June 16th, So if trustees wish to attend one of the remaining performances, please check the schedule that was sent out in last week's Trustee Weekly and let Sherry know that you plan to attend. Next slide, please. We will end with a clip of the event that played on CBC's The National. Thanks again to the Jewish Heritage Committee and the Italian Heritage Committee for your exceptional work, and to Trustees Laskin and Lilka Rotman for your very thorough report.
In 1933, we Jews, we live south of Harvard Street.
On this sunny day, a field trip to see a play about a dark chapter of Canadian history, the Christie Pitts riot of 1933.
Along with many Italians, that's our turf.
In the shadow of Hitler's rise to power, an explosion of violent anti-Semitism right here in Toronto. During a baseball game between two local teams, swastika-wielding members of the Pitt gang clashed with Jewish and Italian immigrants.
I'm grateful that we're partnering with school boards across Ontario to help make real our history and come up with contemporary intersections with how hate in 1933 still manifests today in 2023.
I am a young Jewish Canadian. I've had similar experiences in a similar sports context, and this I felt was shocking. How should this be new history to me?
The author of this graphic novel on the Christie Pitts riot thinks it holds a lesson on intolerance and should be taught in schools across Canada.
I think that sharing that story and understanding that history lets us learn from it.
The play has left an impact on Toronto kids who got to see it first.
Honestly, it was a great experience to sit and watch it and see how it was like.
The way the Italians and Jewish people stood up for each other throughout the racism, even though they knew it could get themselves hurt, I think that should happen more often.
The play, staged by Toronto theatre group The Hogtown Collective, will run throughout May and June.
A banner with the swastika appeared at a baseball game and we tore it down.
The goal is to get as many Toronto students to see it as possible and eventually tweak it for a more mature audience. Deanna Sumanak-Johnson, CBC News, Toronto.
Wonderful. We are now going to feature an update about a wonderful programming happening with respect to apprenticeship and skilled trades at the TDSB. It's important to provide TDSB students with opportunities to explore different pathways and discover passions early on. I saw this firsthand on a recent visit to Westview Centennial for a summer jobs fair for the TDSB students in the northwest area of Toronto. But what many don't know is that the TDSB offers a wide range of outstanding programs for both elementary and secondary students in the skilled trades and apprenticeship pathways. Skilled trades offer valuable avenues for students to explore and develop their interests, ultimately leading them to rewarding and prosperous careers. We've put together a video to share so we can all learn more.
More and more students are interested in a career in the skilled trades. Fortunately, the TDSB offers a range of outstanding programs for both elementary and secondary students to explore various skilled trades and apprenticeship pathways. Early exposure to skilled trades provides students with authentic and meaningful experiences. This helps them discover their passion for a trade and the incredible opportunities available for well-paid and fulfilling careers. This is at a time when there is a substantial demand for skilled trade workers in Ontario.
The great thing about STEM activities at this level is that it removes the idea of what is possible, what is impossible, and kids don't question what's feasible, they just do. They dream things up and they create it, whether it's with popsicle sticks, hot glue, cardboard, and masking tape. They create things that are solutions to problems in the real world. And the great thing about this is that the ideas are the hard part. The technology, that catches up. I want them to be able to be creative in the way they problem solve.
The best part of coming to this class is probably all the fun that we have, all the fun projects that we have, and all the cool conversations we get to have.
The great thing is that we then introduce careers of, well, you like doing this? Well, here's how you can make a career of it. Because really, careers in the skilled trades, they need that imagination, they need that creativity to solve real-world problems.
Regarding connection with pathways for professions, at high school, we have a SHISM program, a specialist high skill major program, where students are exposed to various reach ahead activities, exploring technologies, and then they can choose their discipline, whether they want to pursue this as a profession in the future.
Being able to kind of explore it early on means I get to see what I like and what I don't like, and I get to learn some skills before I have to go to post-secondary education.
I teach a transportation class at Danforth Collegiate, where there's various disciplines within this vocation: refinishing, welding, repair planning, all sorts of different evolutions that they do within my class. There's over 54 Red Seal designations in Canada. Typically, these courses are offered in post-secondary education. It's an excellent experience and opportunity for high school students to sample these professions and the various disciplines within these professions.
I am, in fact, in the SHISM program for transportation technology. I do want to become an auto service mechanic, and definitely with the program, it's very helpful because you get a lot of certifications when it comes to that.
I think this program can set me up as a good career for auto painting. I did the skills competition for Ontario and I got gold medalist for auto painting.
The life skills earned in these technological programs are phenomenal.
I think that the main benefit is that you get to learn how to do things yourself, right? You get to learn how to fix your own cars, do your own oil changes, make your own cabinets, for example, in a kitchen. You don't have to pay someone else. You can do it yourself. You get the satisfaction of doing it yourself.
I think the benefits are definitely the transferable skills and just the experience and meeting people, the connections is really good.
Skilled trade work makes up for 20% of all job vacancies in Canada. Through our skilled trades, tech education, and STEM programming, the TDSB is preparing students for success in current and future careers.
What a great and meaningful video. This video will be featured on our website, and I'm hoping that trustees will consider sharing it with their communities in their newsletters so that more people can learn about what the TDSB has to offer. Now we'll turn our attention to memorials. If we could all those who are able could please stand. Please be seated. Stay standing. And I believe we should be queuing up a slide of Dr. Charles Pascal. There he is.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I'm privileged to stand before you today to honor the memory of Charles Pascal, who died far too soon on April 24th. On news of his passing, tributes to Charles poured in. Boise's dean made a statement, the College of Early Childhood Educators, articles in the Star and in the Globe. But the first tribute was from Steve Paikin, who we all know from the agenda. And I reached out to Steve, and with his permission, we'll use some of his quotes from his published piece on April 25th, Remembering Charles Pascal, with the byline, "There was no greater champion of public education in Ontario than the guy everyone called Chuck." On Twitter, Charles described himself as the following: partner, dad, granddad, professor at Oise UT, former deputy minister at Ontario government, with his focus on education, politics, and sports, with social justice as the common denominator. And then he clarified that his tweets were his own personal opinion. That brief bio was expanded through laughter and tears on May 2nd at Oise during a celebration of his life and legacy. He was described as an outstanding leader, colleague, teacher, and mentor. He was remembered through a series of stories from his life, featuring his brother Ross, children's entertainer Rafi, education guru Michael Fullen, UN Ambassador Bob Ray, Future Skills Center Operational Manager Christine Avery Nunes, former MPP Greg Sabera, and Charles's son Jesse. And the tribute was held in a room full of the who's who in education and politics. What you might not know was that Charles loved baseball, and that was confirmed as part of the program when at Charles's celebration of life, we all needed to sing "Take Me Out to the Ball Game." In his article, Paikin wrote, and I quote, "But lucky for us, Pascal didn't have what it took to be a big league player. And as a result, he would go on to become one of the most influential voices of his time on Ontario education firmament. And so when the Liberals under Dalton McGuinty brought in full-day kindergarten, it was Pascal as the Premier's early childhood education czar who studied the issue and created the roadmap to make it happen. And now, having said this, Chuck, as his friends called him, could be maddeningly blunt and direct. While we love talking politics and baseball, and I'm continuing to quote Steve Paikin, it was not unusual for Pascal to leave me the most blistering voicemail messages expressing his unhappiness at some of my interviews. During my personal back and forth with Charles over the years, I too was the recipient of blunt emails. Let me share one from January 2018. Quote, "Just saw the recommended implementation of the extended day. Given the critical needed leadership of TDSB, it's never too late to follow the evidence we provided in 2009. He reminded me a full 9 years earlier, when it comes to a single seamless program. With TDSB's leadership on this, more and more boards in Ontario and Canada will follow suit quickly to move forward." And then he goes on to say something most profound. "But of course, decisions like this always boil down to one simple question. What does the evidence suggest is best for children and students?" And then, as always, he offered to answer any questions I had. As noted earlier, the 2009 report he was referring to was the report commissioned with our best futures in mind, implementing early learning in Ontario. And as stated in his obituary in the Globe and Mail, he later persuaded the government to introduce the Ontario benefit for moderate and low-income families, and with former Saskatchewan Premier Roy Romanow, created the Canadian Index of Wellbeing as a yardstick for Canadians' quality of life. His contributions are too numerous to list here because he made a difference wherever he went. He became a member of the Order of Canada in 2015. Please, I urge you to read more about his life in his published obituary. Lastly, I reached out to Kathleen Wynne, who had experiences with Charles when she was Minister of Education and Premier of Ontario, and here are her thoughts. Charles was an enthusiastic, loving advocate for children first and foremost. His vision for early childhood education in Ontario was driven by his heart and his knowledge of how little children thrive as they learn through play. He understood the importance of policy and the importance of politics, so his guidance was invaluable to me and my colleagues. That doesn't mean we always agreed with Charles. Honest debate, exchange of ideas were a necessary part of the strong relationship. Maybe it was his lifelong passion for baseball, but I think now of Charles as a great coach who helped form and change the course of publicly funded education in Ontario for the better. The last time I spent any real in-person time with Charles was just before the pandemic started, sitting next to him at the unveiling of Premier Wynne's portrait at Queen's Park. We had a lively conversation about the TDSB. He was always interested in the gossip of the board. And before the municipal election almost a year ago, we corresponded about the future of the board. The TDSB will do everything it can, I said to him, to provide a better future for students. And we will do it by contributing to Charles Pascal's greatest legacy, the value of public education as the great equalizer. In honor of Charles's death, OISE, together with Charles's family, has established the Charles Pascal Memorial Scholarship to support tomorrow's education change makers. To his wife, Tassie Noter, his children, grandchildren, and the rest of Charles' family and friends, on behalf of the entire Toronto District School Board, we extend our deepest sympathy. May his memory be a blessing. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Laskin. It's hard to imagine too many people in Canada more influential in public education than Dr. Charles Pascal. So next up are the chair's announcements. I'd like to begin my chair remarks this evening with an update on my advocacy work on behalf of the Board of Trustees over the last month. As you may remember, at our last month board meeting, we passed a number of advocacy motions. The first was to request an urgent meeting with the Minister of Education to discuss the financial situation of the board, which of course begins with our significant deficit due to COVID-19 expenses not being reimbursed. The board, of course, acknowledges that it is imperative that we bring down our deficit. The challenge we face is that the timing coincides with the end of the COVID-19 Learning Recovery Fund, which accounts for a reduction of 485 staff, and is further exacerbated by our requirement to account for statutory benefit shortfalls that amount to over $30 million a year, something we have previously paid through reserves, but are now not able to do so, as we have no reserves to draw from. As we are creatures of the province, we receive our funding from the province. We are not, for example, able to raise revenue through taxation. Statutory benefits are not set by us, but as employers, we are required to pay them, and as such, ought to be simple transfer payments from the government. Without reserves to draw on, we are faced with a dire reality. To balance, we will be forced to use funding that should be going to students and programming supports should the government not step in to help us in some way, shape, or form. When I saw the Minister of Education last week at the Christy Pitts event, I took the opportunity to remind him about my meeting request back on May 2nd. He did indicate that his office would reach out to schedule a date, but so far, I must unfortunately report that a date has not yet been set. I also wrote to the Minister of Education about the pause being placed on the review of special incidents portion funding. This letter, which also offered the minister an invitation to tour a congregated site, has also not received a formal response from the ministry to my office. However, there was a very quick and important informal answer, staff to staff. In a nutshell, ministry staff shared that they have discontinued the application approach to this source of funding and have instead gone to a formula for this year that nets the TDSB an additional $3.386 million of funding for our most vulnerable special education students. Ministry staff also shared that they are once again committed to review SIP funding in the coming year. It should be noted that we are still seriously underfunded on SIP funding when we compare with other boards. Furthermore, it needs to be pointed out that we spend considerably more on special education as a whole compared to what we are funded for. Tonight's report on the budget meeting from yesterday evening noted that amount is $67.7 million. And we spend that because the amount the needs of students in the City of Toronto are so significant. And so while I think that the increase in SIP funding is a sliver of good news, as is the commitment to review it, it really doesn't go nearly as far as we need it to. And so I do believe our advocacy must continue, as this is an area where ministry benchmarks really do not meet the needs of our students. Finally, at last month's board meeting, we also made a decision requesting that I delegate in front of the Standing Committee on Social Policy regarding Bill 98, otherwise known as the Better Schools and Students Outcome Act. As a result, on Tuesday, May 9th, I spoke on behalf of the TDSB and alongside the president of OBSPA, Kathy Abraham, as both a witness and a delegate, responding to inquiries and expressing concerns regarding the proposed legislation. My remarks are posted on the TDSB website, and our full submission was sent to the committee as well as submitted to the Ontario Registry, so it is very much a part of the official record. My delegation focused largely on the importance of having locally elected voices in shaping the policies and regulations that impact our schools and wider communities. It was made clear that our position was that all stakeholders, including school boards, need to be properly consulted when making significant changes to our public education system. Among other things, my delegation spoke to our concerns around the changes to the ministry's involvement in how school board lands might be declared surplus, and questioned what would the province want to accomplish in this area that cannot already be done by locally elected trustees. Rather than take on powers currently provided to locally elected trustees, what other tools might already be available to the province to work collaboratively with and across school boards to achieve provincial goals? I also noted that the TDSB and many other local school boards have been asking for years now for a lifting of the moratorium on school closures. While this is by no means a quick fix to address current accommodation challenges, given the current process takes years between identifying schools for review and then possible disposition, we would welcome the opportunity to see this moratorium lifted and to work collaboratively with the government on our secondary plans that have been so carefully thought out by trustees and staff to ensure our schools are efficient, modernized, and right-sized to improve student programming and ensure student success. As a sidebar, I would point out that we estimate it costs upwards of $12 million per year to keep schools open that are well below capacity. This $12 million per year would come in handy for us each year as we grapple with our deficit and current financial position. Our delegation did not go unnoticed. I was subsequently invited to join Metro Morning to voice concerns regarding the bill, and to reiterate the importance of consultation and collaboration between the Ministry of Ontario School Boards, between the Ministry and Ontario School Boards. We must keep this and our budget conversation going. Let us not lose sight of ongoing work that lies ahead. Together, we can effect meaningful change to create safe, inclusive, and welcoming environments for all of our students. Finally, I want to extend my sincere appreciation to all those involved in expediting all of this advocacy work over the past month. It drew in staff from many departments and kept the communications department extraordinarily busy. I leaned on many people for support and perspective, including trustees, through calls and discussions, but also through listening to conversations had around this boardroom table. Your exceptional work and swift action have been vital in pushing this board's agenda forward, and I want to say thank you. Lastly, I would like to highlight some lighter developments over the past month. First, to educational partnerships. I had the pleasure to attend with many in this room the first in-person reception following the pandemic for educational partnerships. So I would like to express my sincere appreciation on behalf of the TDSB for the remarkable partnerships that we have developed with over 191 organizations and 203 programs. I know I speak for all trustees and especially our students when I say how grateful we are for all the opportunities that have come to fruition in our close work through these partnerships. We have been able to offer students access to high quality resources, facilities, and expertise that would otherwise have been unavailable to them. And this has a tremendous impact both inside and outside the classroom. The 25th TDSB anniversary, many of you were here for that. I would like to take a moment to express my sincerest gratitude and appreciation for the exceptional 25th anniversary celebration of the TDSB that took place back on April 30th. It seems like a long time ago, but it wasn't that long ago. As chair of the board, it was an immense honor to be part of such a remarkable and memorable occasion. The amalgamation of 7 separate school boards to create the TDSB was a pivotal moment in the history of public education in the province. This milestone provided an opportunity for reflection on the past 25 years, celebrating the accomplishment and the successes that have been achieved, and setting the course for the next 25 years of growth and development. I want to commend the organizers, some of whom are here with us tonight, for their meticulous planning and execution of the event. The attention to detail and the thoughtful arrangements truly made it a special experience for all attendees. It was heartwarming to witness the gathering of past and present leaders, trustees, staff, and community members, all united in their commitment to the betterment of education in our city. The opportunity to connect with and engage with individuals who've contributed to the success of the TDSB was particularly meaningful. Sharing experiences and insights with these dedicated individuals further reinforced the importance of our collective efforts in serving our students and our communities. On behalf of the board, I extend my deepest gratitude to everyone who played a role in organizing and supporting this momentous celebration. Your hard work, dedication, and passion were evident in every aspect of the event, and it undoubtedly contributed to its resounding success. As we move forward, I am confident that the TDSB will continue to thrive under the guidance of our exceptional leaders, trustee, and staff. Together, we will forge a path that ensures our students receive the highest quality education and our communities remain vibrant and supportive. I encourage you all to read the congratulatory letters up on the screen. They are framed near the door outside this room, and they are letters from our Prime Minister and former trustees, MP Chen and MPP Smith. And finally, we have 2 other celebrations to note. Student trustee Isaiah Shafkat has been chosen as one of, don't look embarrassed, it's wonderful, as one of 3 recipients of OBSPA's Public Student Trustee Leadership Scholarships. Isaiah was described as a leader among leaders, and we are thrilled he has been chosen for this honor. Finally, Trustee McLean has become a grandfather. A future TDSB student is in the wings. Congratulations. And that concludes my report for May. We will now turn to reports from trustees appointed to external organizations and to student trustees. So we'll start first with Trustee Lee. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to be on the record that there is not a single day that you will find where school buses will beat grandbabies in terms of, I don't know, attractiveness, but we are going to talk about school buses today. Colleagues, at the beginning of this term, you all elected me to be a representative in the Toronto Student Transportation. I think I got that one right, which is an organization composed of the TDSB and the TCDSB to transport our students. And one of the biggest mandates of this organization this year is to renew the contracts that we all have with our transportation companies. And this current contract will expire at the end of this year. So the TSTG has started an entire request for tender process in the beginning of this year in March. And so far, we have had a successful tender, and the TSTG staff have just recommended today in our meeting for the boards to adopt the contracts for the companies that were selected to provide transportation to our students and also the TCDSB students starting 2024. Just to note, this is not about September 2023 because our contract expires at the end of this upcoming school year, but starting 2024. So throughout the entire tender process, the winners were selected based on a variety of criteria, ranging from a technical analysis of their ability to deliver their promised service to a reference analysis from references across the interactions, across the duration of their interactions, including ourselves or the TSTG as a reference member. In other words, if some provider have provided terrible service, that was reflected in a reference. And also cost to make sure that we use our funding responsibly and to make sure that we spend as little as required to satisfy the transportational need of our students. And you will know why I mentioned that specifically at the end of my presentation. So 9 companies submitted their proposal, and 1 company was not selected, and the entirety of our routes were allocated to 8 companies. Within these 8 companies, 2 are brand new providers that we have not worked with before. So they got a very small number of routes just as an initial test to see if they can deliver up on their promises. 1 company that used to provide 7% of our services was not chosen again because of both the experiences that we've had with them before and also the quality of their current bid. Namely to say another company that provided 33% of our total service currently will be rolled back to 17% for very much the same reasons. So in summary, good performances and a well-established tender was rewarded, and poor performances and also tenders that were not up to par were not rewarded. But 8 providers, once again, were selected. No providers in the latest selection will provide more than 28% of our total contract, and this was done specifically to reduce the risks to non-performance that we have. Throughout the tender process, there has also been a variety of tactics that were put in place and also requirements to make sure that we provide stable service. First of all, the RFT, or request for tender process, was sent out 6 months earlier than it was last time. So we're not rushing the process at all. Second, we are asking in our tender for our bus providers to allocate a bigger proportion of spares and backups. I believe, and I'm looking to our staff members who are in the meetings with me to correct me if I mess this number up. I believe the current tender requires an 8% allowance for standby busing, whereas our current arrangement only has 5%. That basically means if we tendered 100 buses, we need 8 of them to sit there to wait for potential issues to come up so that we can fill the routes. We are also giving our bus companies actual route assignments before the school year starts. This is a departure from our current practice where everybody gets mock routes and they really find out what their actual routes are in the short period before school starts. So they now know exactly which drivers will be assigned to which route a long time before the school starts so they can make preparations. And we're also mandating that each driver on each route complete at least 1 simulated run before the start of the school year so that they don't get lost, I guess. In addition to that, we will be, the TSTG will be asking every bus company to provide weekly employment headcount status updates throughout the summer before the school year starts. And if we get to a point where it is 2 weeks before the school year starts, and that company still do not have enough bus drivers to fill the route, they will lose the route. And that route will be given to another company that has the ability to fulfill the demand. And TSTG staff will actually visit the bus companies to make sure that they have the staff members to fill the route. In addition, if a student that has a special need is getting bused, we are mandating that the bus companies actually speak with the parents of that student before school starts. Not an email, not a voicemail, not a text message. They will contact the parent until they reach them and speak to them personally so that they know exactly how that student with special needs is being picked up, where the pickup location is, and when. So there will be no mistakes going forward. And if there's a need, we're also mandating the companies to speak with the principals of the school to make arrangement for any special allowances that the particular school needs, right? So those are all the things that are put in place that I guess didn't exist on this contract cycle for the singular purpose of making sure that the buses run when they need to run. And here comes the fun part. As a result of all of these goodness, plus the impact of inflation and higher cost due to higher wage demands, the average cost of busing and transportation for the TSTG, that's TDSB and TCDSB combined, will increase 16% year over year, starting 24-25. That amounts to $26.4 million that will be shared between our boards. So this conversation we will have to have in the next, not this one, thank God, next budget cycle. Whether the province will be able to help us with additional funding, we don't know. But that is to be seen. So I hope that's informative. What is happening next is on the meeting for June 1st of the FBEC committee. Someone yell at me. Okay, good. I'm seeing nods. A report will be presented by staff with a recommendation for a operational contract to be signed between the TDSB and these 8 selected busing companies so that we can start the process of preparation for transportation in the school year 2024. So way more detailed information to come on the next FBEC meeting, but I hope this is a good preview of what's going to happen. Thank you.
Trustee Lee, are you willing to take questions from trustees?
Am I willing or am I allowed?
Well, Denise isn't here sitting next to me, so I'm going to say yes.
If I'm allowed, I will take questions. I'll try my
Okay.
best to answer them, or I'll tell you I don't know.
Thank you very much, Trustee Lee. Very informative. I'm wondering if as part of that June 1st report or shortly thereafter, there could be a communication to parents highlighting the changes that are being made to better serve them and their students. I think that would be a really important piece of communication that we could send out. So I'm just wondering if that could be considered through you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, through Madam Chair. I assume Trustee Lat. Can I refer that to staff to see?
Thank you, Trustee Earhart.
I think Trustee,
Pardon me?
We have the opportunity or to Trustee Lee, if he will engage us. It would be wonderful if the report can make mention of any considerations regarding our Indigenous students, in particular, many who are bused to Kapapa Machakwi School and other schools within the urban Indigenous education centers. Thank you.
Thank you, through Madam Chair. Just like my response to Trustee Laskin, it'll be great if I can refer that request also to staff. So 2 requests: 1, can we draft a communication to parents, and 2, can we include in the report at FBEC how we are accommodating Indigenous students. Thank you.
I have confirmed that we do allow questions. I remember questions from past boards on these. So Trustee McLean, you're next.
Thank you, and through the chair. I was just curious, Trustee Lee, if at the beginning of the school year, traditionally there's a waiting period for the buses to start for students. Was that addressed in the upcoming plan?
Trustee McLean, through Madam Chair, can I take that question back? I just need to go back into the tender document and also the staff at the TSTG to confirm what that specific requirement was. Thank you. Thank you.
I'd also remind everybody that this is going to be discussed at the next FBEC meeting, so there will be opportunities to ask these kind of questions. I'm just looking to see Trustee Dawson.
Thank you, through the chair. Thank you for the thorough report. I was wondering if you have any information on what percentage of the vehicles might be electric, if at all?
Sorry, Madam Chair, what percentage of the vehicles might be the larger ones?
Electric vehicles.
Electric. 0% are going to be electric vehicles right now, but there is a part of the recommendation from TSTG that the board began to make allocations of funding to procure up to 2% of our total fleet to be electric powered. That being said, I just want to be very clear that there is a price tag on that. And the price tag, I believe, just give me 1 second. I'm hectically scrolling through my document here. Anyways, I'm going to give a ballpark number around $900,000 a year in cost.
Okay, thank you. I'll ask it again at FBEC too. Thank you, through the chair.
Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions. So I'm going, was there a question to my right? Okay. So I'm going to move on. We have a report on Board of Health from Trustee Suskandaraja. You're up.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. Just a quick update from Public Health. We've met a couple of times now and sort of just gone through how the board functions and sort of issues perhaps not directly related to our concerns here at the board. But there was one thing I wanted to flag that I thought was very directly related to what we do. So our last board meeting, public health meeting, we had an advocacy letter sent out by the Toronto Youth Cabinet, and it was also supported by our teachers' federations, who've all signed on it. And the letter was asking, directed at our Minister of Education, Stephen Lecce, asking for more supports around mental health. So the students, or rather the Youth Cabinet, had asked for 5 sort of demands, if you will. One of them being mandatory mental health literacy in the curriculum, which we were very pleased to see soon after the letter went out, that Lecce had announced that the province will be making commitments in moving towards the direction of including mandatory mental health literacy in the curriculum. So I just want to thank the advocacy work of our young people that I believe really pushed this forward. Some of the other things that they also had asked for is mental health days for students. Third ask is additional mental health clinicians and student support staff, such as mental health professionals, school psychologists, child and youth workers, social workers, nurses, guidance counselors, and mental health crisis intervention works. And they really, they flagged the current reality that the current ratio of social worker / child and youth workers to student, and school psychologist to student, and guidance counselor to student, and mental health worker to students exceeds the recommended average of 1 to every 250 students, and 1 to every 700 students, and 1 to every 375 students, respectively, of the list that I mentioned. The fourth ask is collection and reporting of data on mental health supports and services in schools. And lastly, they've asked for school-based culturally appropriate mental health screening for all grades. And this ask really comes out of, again, the advocacy they've done. The students have also done a student mental health survey in the city, which collected information from 1,042 students from across Ontario between the ages of 12 to 19 and the state of their mental health. So, Toronto Youth Cabinet is doing some remarkable work around this. I know we've made commitments at the board as well. So I just wanted to share sort of the interesting work that's happening there. And if anybody wants sort of their full letter, I'm happy to share that with Denise and we can get that sent out to everyone. That's all from me and from Public Health. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Trustee Sriskandarajah. I'm just looking around the room. I'm not seeing any questions. Just checking online. I don't think so. Okay, up next we have our report from our student trustees.
Hello, could everyone? Thank you through the chair. Hello, everyone. Here is our student trustee report. Okay, so the first item on our report is the TDSB Student Senate Grade 9-10 retreat. So the Senate and student trustees, along with over 60 students across the district, was at Monocliffs for our annual student leadership retreat. This was the first time we've held such an event since the pandemic. The weekend was overwhelmingly successful with students building new friendships and had the opportunity to engage in learning about leadership.
Good evening. Good evening, everyone. Next on our student trustee report is the Student Trustees Awards for Student Excellence. We are excited to say we have numerous nominations for the Student Trustees Awards for Student Excellence, and we look forward to reviewing the nomination and recognizing students in June.
Next, we have dinner with Cody College. So Indigenous Student Trustee Shapcat had the pleasure of meeting with students from Cody College in the US. Shafkat spoke about some of his work as the Indigenous Student Trustee, as well as talked about various issues impacting Indigenous and 2S LGBTQ communities.
Next on our report, we have the Ontario Student Trustees Association, which is also known as OSTA-ACO. The student trustees and student trustees-elect had the pleasure of attending OSTA-ACO's annual general meeting, where incoming student trustees engaged in learning to support them in their role and outgoings engaged in learning to support them after the conclusion of their term.
Relating to OSTA-ACO, during the annual general meeting, we were excited to present the inauguration of the Indigenous Student Trustees Council for the association and name the first chair of the council. This has been in the works for many, many years. I remember starting this when I first took office and having the discussions about that. So we were very excited to have a dedicated member of OSTA-ACO's Executive Council be Indigenous. Next up is a panel with the Honorable Murray Sinclair. Myself, alongside other Indigenous student trustees from across the province, will have the pleasure of hosting a fireside chat with the Honorable Murray Sinclair to discuss Indigenous student mental health in Ontario. This panel will be live streamed and will take place next week on Thursday.
Ontario Public Supervisory Officers Association, also known as OPSOA. Indigenous Student Trustee Shafkat was invited back to moderate a student panel. And for those of you who were there, I did make a little guest appearance. Students had the opportunity to share their perspective on issues impacting students in Ontario and how supervisory officers can better support students in education. Just a little bit of my remarks from what I saw in my short time there. It was a really, really engaging session. I think the student panel was something I've never seen before in such a conference. I have a short attention span, but I was engaged throughout all of it. So it was great.
Next on our report, we have the Toronto Indigenous Youth Council trip to Monocliffs. The TOIC will be heading up to Monocliffs OEC for this weekend to engage in various team building workshops and partake in land-based learning. This will be an excellent opportunity for Indigenous students to build stronger friendships and participate in outdoor education.
Next on our report is I had the pleasure of meeting with select students from Limestone District School Board to discuss Indigenous education, how to better support Indigenous students, and the importance of truth and reconciliation within the classroom. Before I conclude our second last report for the school year, we are excited to say that the Student Trustee and Student Senate elections have concluded, and we are excited to invite Yi Kai Zhu and Angelica Bell and Ozawa Secord as the next 3 student trustees for the 2024-2025 school year, as well as welcoming 18 students elected from across the district to serve on the Student Senate. This concludes our report, our second last report for this school year. Madam Chair, we are happy to take any questions trustees may have.
We also encourage you to visit the TDSB website to actually see all the students who were elected through the student elections. Obviously, if we were here to read all their names, I think you wouldn't want to be put through that. So I encourage you all to visit the website and just check it out for yourselves.
And I'm sorry, we also met the 2023-24 school year.
Oh, the student election, yes.
Typical year ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for that terrific report. You guys are so busy and you do so much. So thank you. And we are excited for the new panel, but we will look forward to next month. Okay, so at this point, we are on item number 11, which is the Director's Leadership Report. Over to you, Director Russell Rollins.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good evening, staff, students, community members, and the Board of Trustees. I will miss our student trustees, but I won't miss following you on the board agenda. Impressive young people in their leadership and their influence. And I know that I'll feel similarly about the new trustees, student trustees that will join us shortly. Tonight, my leadership report will focus on 4 areas briefly. Appreciation for the community organization and staff who supported tutoring. An acknowledgement of the Center of Excellence for Black Student Achievement and the update that is on tonight's agenda. An ode to the skilled trades and apprenticeships. And lastly, to speak a little bit about a risk and an opportunity that our business and operations staff took through the Innovation Challenge. Firstly, last spring, the Ministry of Education for the first time provided tutoring funding to school boards. The Toronto District School Board received approximately $20 million. At that time, we worked really diligently to determine how best to engage this tutoring fund to support our students emerging out of the last phase of the pandemic. These funds have now nearly all been fully spent within schools and communities. I'm sincerely grateful to the invaluable contributions that a diversity of community organizations have made in order to deliver tutoring programs to students close to their homes and in meaningful, relevant, and culturally responsive ways. Your commitment, community organizations, and your dedication have made a significant impact on the lives of countless students, their families, and especially students that have been historically and currently underserved. Your staff have been mentors and role models to TDSB students, keeping them safe, engaged, and while strengthening their literacy and numeracy skills. We appreciate the bridges built with you, TDSB students and communities. Working together, we must continue to advocate at the provincial level for sustained support for organizations so that they have resources and finances that they need in order to continue to make a difference in the lives of young people and their families. Similarly, many staff and students offered after-school and weekend academic leadership development and well-being programs. These efforts were above and beyond the regular working day. And as a grade 2 student said to me, "You're super committed, caring, and fun." That's what our partners and our staff were through this program. So thank you so much. Trustees, it's difficult to believe that 3 years ago, I delivered a report which the board approved in order to establish the Center of Excellence for Black Student Achievement. I remember that evening well, sitting in the back room at my house on Zoom during the pandemic, speaking to a screen passionately about the work that we needed to do in order to address the needs of Black students throughout the Toronto District School Board. The intent of the center was to build on community voices to honor Black communities' past and ongoing efforts through direct, multifaceted strategies and engagement to support meaningful change at the TDSB. In the report before you this evening, you will find a summary of key actions. In 3 years, I would never have imagined some of the actions that have been undertaken, from a life education program for Black boys in secondary school, to a summer leadership program, to a youth participatory action research conference, a day in aviation program. I could go on. And in fact, the report outlines many different opportunities. We know that from our own human rights report that Black students continue to experience high levels of racism, which contributes to disproportionately lower academic success. The changes initiated through the center create safer, more inspiring, affirming, and responsive learning spaces to Black students that address their academic and well-being needs. It's important to state and really reaffirm that the work that is being done through the center, and most importantly in classrooms in schools, not only serves to create safer and more enriching academic spaces for Black students, but for all students in those classes. I also want to affirm to communities that are listening that through our strategy to address racism and hate, that we will be working together to support strategies that build distinct and connected actions to address other forms of hate, racism, and discrimination, such as Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, anti-Asian racism, homophobia, and transphobia, to name a few. Dunn says victories for justice must be fought for and by ordinary people with allies from other parts of the nation, I would say from all across the Toronto District School Board. So thank you to the staff who have taken the idea of the center, as well as community members and students, and grown it to something that I know sets a model not only for TDSB schools and classrooms, but sets a model for other district school boards who are emulating the strategy. I'd like to just speak briefly to skilled trades and apprenticeships. Perhaps it's the carpenter in me that wants to reaffirm that skilled trades and apprenticeships are a first choice. They're not a backup plan. They're not something you do when you can't pursue another area. They really need to be considered as an essential and viable career path that can bring meaning and opportunities to contribute to society. They're not in any way secondary to the kinds of professions, careers, and jobs that are supported, and often better supported and better promoted across schools and in society in general. Last year, when I visited the Trade Center, I saw firsthand the great high school pathways for apprenticeships and the many choices that students have. So I just want to lend my voice to students and families who might be listening, as well as staff. Consider the skilled trades. Fittingly, at this year's Skills Ontario competition, students from the TDSB impressively took home 22 medals, including 7 gold. This provincial level competition offers a unique opportunity for students to demonstrate their skills in a variety of trades and earn a spot in the national competition, World Skills Competition. The top medalists will now be representing Team Ontario nationally in Winnipeg this month. In addition, the TDSB was presented with the School Board Award of Distinction from Skills Ontario, an award given to a school board in Ontario for showing strong dedication and commitment to supporting students interested in pursuing a wide range of careers in the skilled trades and technologies. So congratulations to this year's winners, and we wish Team Ontario the best of luck. And thank you to our staff who continue to offer current, vibrant, and innovative programming. And lastly, finally, I want to recognize the Innovation Challenge. We had 9 teams of staff participating from a variety of business and operations departments. I was lucky enough to attend what I will call a fantastic adult hackathon that embodies the same spirit of innovation, design thinking, and foundations for public service, and has an impact that we encourage our staff to have on our students each and every day. The winner of the Design Thinking Excellence Award was Idea Nation, with staff from the Support Staff Office, Units D&E, and Employee Services. They presented their idea for hiring for a better future, which brings forward new and improved recruitment practices, including permanent offers and better incentives to encourage greater retention and employee satisfaction. They were dynamic and funny, and most of all, passionate about making a difference for the TDSB. The Innovation Excellence and Best Storytelling Awards were presented to the team from the Sustainability Office. They were incredibly creative, as well as a team from Facilities and Planning for their TDSB Facilities 311 mobile app. They also won distinction, and also the team, the People's Choice Award went to the Fantastic Facilities and Operations for the cross-functional My Key Pass. I think this experience really highlights the innovation of our business and operations staff at TDSB, and I'm excited to see how we can implement these kinds of ideas to better our operations. So I want to thank our service excellence team, as well as Leola and Peter Singh for their leadership and support of this particular group. Trustees, lastly, please watch for our TDSB Excellence Awards reception, which is taking place on June the 8th, for more stories that will inspire you around our staff excellence. This concludes my leadership report for this evening.
Thank you very much, Director Russell Rollins. At this time, we're going to move to item number 12, which is declarations of possible conflict of interest. Do any trustees have any conflicts of interest they wish to declare? Okay, hearing none, we're going to move on to item number 13. This is matters to be decided without discussion. Trustee Dawson, please go ahead.
Chair, I would like to, from the floor, pull item 15.24 and 15.25 from consent.
Okay, so in order to do that, we need 2/3 of trustees. I need a seconder for that before we can proceed. Trustee King, thank you. So we do this by a show. We'll do this by a show of hands. Do we have 2/3 of trustees who would be willing to pull this item?
Priska Naraja in favor.
Trustee Ghost in favor.
Okay, thank you. That has carried.
Trustee Hassan in favor.
Okay, thank you. Can I have a mover and a seconder then on the revised matters to be decided without discussion? I have Trustee Rajwani and Vice Chair Shan. All those in favor, show of hands. Any opposed? Okay. All right, and that has carried. So just to clarify, the items that are on consent are 14, item 15.2, 15.1.2, 3 and 4, 15.2, 1, 2, and 3, 15.3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. All of item 15.4. And item 16 is a written notice of motion, so that's not on the floor this evening. That will go to GPC next week. Okay, so off consent, we have item 15.11, item 15.2, 4, and 5 that were just removed, and then all of 15.5, and that is it. And 15.5 is because that was just from 2 days ago. Okay, so with that in mind, we are going to go to item number 14, which is confirmation of minutes. Right, sorry, thank you, Ms. Joseph Dowers, that passed on consent. So we are on 15.11. This is, no, 15.11. This is the Governance and Policy Committee report number 4 from May 3rd, item number 1, which is the Parent Involvement Advisory Committee report on PR 542, changing a timetable consultation process. And I'm going to ask the director to indicate who will be speaking to this on staff's behalf.
Thank you very much. I would ask Associate Director Zarisco to address this.
Very much, and through you, Chair Chernoslin, to the Board of Trustees, my apologies. At the GPC Policy Committee, when this item was being considered, I failed to be very clear with the committee to be asking for consideration for the committee to direct this motion back to staff, as it is an operational matter. So I put that consideration. Thank you. I put that consideration to the board now. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Laskin, please go ahead.
I'm happy to move that, Madam Chair.
Okay. Is there a seconder for that? Trustee Rajwani, thank you. Okay. So we don't have this ready in eScribe. Are there any trustees with questions? Okay, seeing none, we're going to do this by show of hands. All in favor? If you're online, you can feel free to say aye. Let us know how you vote.
Aye. Raja in favor.
Nunziata in favor.
All in favor.
Hassan in favor.
Okay, thank you. Any opposed? Okay, and that has carried. So that has been referred to staff. Thank you very much, trustees. Next up, we have item number 15.24. This is the Center of Excellence for Black Student Achievement Update, Year 1. I'm going to pass this over to Director Russell Rollins to introduce.
Thank you very much. Through you, Chair, System Superintendent Karen Murray will provide a few brief remarks.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you. Through you, Chair. The report before you outlines the work of the Center of Excellence for Black Student Achievement from our physical launch last June 2022. It highlights the engagement with Black students, families, community organizations, and staff. It provides an overview of the work we've done that speaks to student program and leadership. Some was mentioned by our director a few minutes ago around the professional learning and system-wide initiatives, and as well as the community engagement and outreach in which we've been engaging in. We're looking forward to our work continuing next year as we organize the comprehensive 2-year strategy on the action plan to address anti-Black racism based on the expanded anti-hate and anti-racism strategy, and as well as some of the taking some of the best practices we've been engaging in within our initiatives and sharing them across the district. So thank you. I'll take any questions.
Okay. Trustee King, please go ahead.
Good evening, and thank you through the chair. I just really wanted to take a moment to acknowledge the very impressive work out of the center in this first year. It's been really exciting to see students and educators be able to come together in the physical space at Winston Churchill, but also to have those opportunities virtually and in the community as well. I heard very positive reflections from some of my colleagues about the investment that was made in the center at its inception. And just really look forward to the growth and the continued work with the support of staff and the involvement of community and students as well. So thank you for this work. Through the chair, that's all.
Thank you very much, Trustee King. Next up, Trustee Dawson.
Thank you through the chair. I just really wanted to echo Trustee King's comments as well. I'm so incredibly proud to have supported the center from its inception as a member of BSAC. And I'm really just blown away at how far the work has come thus far. I did not expect all of the amazing initiatives that were presented at PSSC. So I just wanted to take the time to acknowledge and thank staff and also reflect on some of the comments made by trustees at our PSSC meeting in terms of how worthwhile and meaningful the investment in the center has been. And to my colleagues, I hope that we can continue to invest in this meaningful and impactful work in working toward improved outcomes for Black students. Thank you.
Thank you. And next up, Vice Chair Shen, please go ahead.
It's really a privilege to have the Center for Excellence of Black Student Achievement in my ward at Winston Churchill Collegiate, located within Winston Churchill Collegiate. I've had, within less than a year of being a trustee, many times have had the chance to visit and see the work. And it's fabulous to see this vision of many people, the dream of many people come to reality. The staff are fabulous, passionate, dedicated. The kind of programming that they've been offering are innovative. And I think this is a model across the country, in fact, across Canada, not just Canada, US, to start looking at meaningful intervention to address the historic disadvantage of anti-Black racism, which spans over 4 centuries or even longer. So it is critical that we continue to support and build this and to make sure that this Center of Excellence for Black Student Achievement can actually make every one of our schools a center of excellence for Black student achievement. That's the kind of energy and the passion I see, but it is important for us to continue to support the program, the staff, the passion, and the dedication, because this is hard work. It is removing years of historic disadvantage and removing years of systemic oppression that still continues to happen today. So it's a lot of hard work. So we need to be able to be patient. We need to be able to be intentional in our resources. And it's very heartening to see the center actually take on other forms of oppression that exist and connect those struggles, because I think Eurocentrism, the antidote could be Afrocentrism. And if that happens, we could all benefit, all communities, including people who belong to European descent, will benefit. So I'm looking forward to continuing to supporting this program in the center. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Shen. Up next, we have Student Trustee Musa. Please go ahead.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to offer some words because I've had a very personal experience with the center, and as a Black student myself, the center has offered me so many resources and actual professional experience that if you were actually to go on my LinkedIn right now, some of my jobs have come through the center, and just connecting with other Black students alike, they've told me that the center has changed their lives. Last year, I was involved in the Black Student Summer Leadership Program, and I'm also involved in it again. And I know this year they had like double the amount of students from last year. And you can see the outreach that the center has on Black students. And I just wanted to voice my thankfulness. I'm eternally grateful for the center and the resources that it has.
Thank you very much. It's so lovely to hear the firsthand experiences. Next, we have student trustee Shafkat. Go ahead.
Thank you. Forgive me. Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. First, I'd like to thank System Superintendent Murray and her team for preparing this report. Although I don't have the personal experience with the Center of Excellence for Black Student Achievement, I've been invited to a few of their events, and I've been able to see an amazing display of Black excellence. Great students, student leaders, our student trustee-elect, where I first met at the Center of Excellence for Black Student Achievement. And I just really want to express my gratitude to you, System Superintendent Murray, and your team, and everyone involved with the Center of Excellence for Black Student Achievement. Empowering youth is so important. And I think the center does that very, very well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm just going to do a quick check online just to see if we have any questions from the floor. Nope. Okay, so we are going to ask for a mover and a seconder for this report. Trustee Dawson and Trustee Rajwani, thank you. And are we voting in? This will be an eScribe. If you're not using eScribe, please let us know how you vote.
Trustee Patel in favor, Madam Chair.
Trustee Hassan in favor.
Trustee Pei in favor.
Trustee Nunziata in favor.
Same thing, just give it a second. We're just giving it a second to see if it comes up. It's too late. I'm sorry, it's too late. Can the student trustees vote be recorded? It's not a recorded vote. I'm sorry.
Chair Trustee Wong in favor.
Okay, we're just going to do show of hands. We're having technical difficulties.
Priscilla in favor.
Thank you. Any opposed? Okay, hearing and seeing none, that has carried. It just came up. Okay. Okay, we are going to move on in a second. We'll just wait for the computer to catch up. Okay, there we go. And that has carried unanimously, but it's not a recorded vote. We are on item number 15.25. This is incorporating IDC4U, deconstructing anti-Black racism. I'm going to go to Trustee Dawson on this one. Thank you.
Thank you through the chair. I'm not going to take up too much time because really I would love to hear from students on this motion. I just would like to say that I'm so grateful to students, the student trustees, for flagging this issue. I think it is an extremely important one. I think that and hope that my colleagues will support requesting that the ministry make this course a provincially accredited course so that it can be offered as a university pathway course to all school boards in Ontario. This is an extremely important milestone for our education system. And in working toward a more equitable and just system, I think it is absolutely critical that we pass this motion today and urge the ministry to do so as well. So that is all I have to say on this, and I will trust that our student colleagues will have more in terms of why this is very important and why the issue is an issue. So thank you.
Okay. So trustee, we'll go to student trustee Isaiah Shafkat first. Thank you.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. First, I'd like to express my gratitude once again to trustees Dawson and King for moving and seconding this on our behalf. I'd also like to thank D. Tyler Robinson for working with us to create this motion. As many trustees have seen, the community supports this. We've seen various letters from a number of students, teachers, members at large, as well as from elected officials from across the province. I think it goes without saying that we need to enable all students to engage in the work of deconstructing all forms of racism, and to have this course have its own unique course code does that. Now, this is a letter of advocacy. Unfortunately, we do not have the power to change course codes on our own, but this is a step in the right direction. We are moving one step forward and hoping the ministry will move with us. I have not personally taken the course. If my school were to offer it, I would not be able to, because much like student trustee Musa said during the committee meeting, you cannot have repeated course codes on your transcript. When you have a repeated course code, universities are under the assumption that you have repeated a class, and that does not look good. Now, I urge all trustees to vote in favor and vote unanimously to pass this and show your support for empowering youth to engage in the work of deconstructing anti-Black racism. I would also like to ask that this be put to a recorded vote and that the student trustees' votes be recorded in the minutes. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, student trustee Musa, please go ahead.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. I'll try to keep my comments brief as I'm kind of repeating what I said at the committee meeting. So just for some perspective, and I think student trustee Shafkat alluded to it a little bit, I was unable to take the course, Deconstructing Anti-Black Racism, because of the course code, which is IDC4U. And the problem with that course code is that there's a lot of courses that fall under that umbrella. So that under that umbrella, the course that I'm taking currently is AP Calculus, which those are two different courses. We have Deconstructing Anti-Black Racism, and we also have AP Calculus, which is a math. Another course that I have at my school under IDC4U is Personal Finance. So you can see there's a variety of those types of courses under that course code. Students need to see themselves represented in curriculum. I would have loved to take this course, but unfortunately I was not able to because of the course code. And so all we're asking is that an advocacy letter be sent to the ministry to ask for this to be a provincially accredited course code in order for students to have access to this course in all schools. And that's pretty much it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Up next, we have student trustee Jeffrey Asaro. Please go ahead.
Thank you, through the chair. I will also keep my comments brief. I also just wanted to say thank you so much to Mr. Robinson, Trustee King, and Trustee Dawson for bringing up this motion today. As to my own personal remarks, I currently do have this course, and I could say proudly that I absolutely love it. Our discussion-based curriculum and the way we speak and learn from each other, both students and teachers, is It's been one of the biggest highlights that I've had in my school year. This curriculum has given us transformative skills and a better perception as to how we see the world and its social issues surrounding racism, discrimination, and systemic barriers. And we've just fallen in love with what we can do to change and how we can, view this world in a different way, in a more positive light, and how we empower students to take on and break down these barriers that we have today is just one of the best things that I've seen throughout this course. And I really think that it can benefit other students if they can have this accredited on a provincial level. So I'd just like to say thank you once again, and I hope everyone votes in favor for this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. And the last trustee I have on this list is Trustee King. Please go ahead.
Thank you again through the chair. It is so wonderful to see the work of student trustees come to the board through this motion, and it's an honor to be the seconder representing student voice and advocating for a really exciting potential educational change. I think that some of my colleagues and the director started this thing with the t-shirts. So today I am wearing my Unlearn t-shirt, and the phrases unlearn inequity, unlearn injustice that are written across here. I thought that seemed really fitting as we discuss increasing opportunity for more critical thinking and deconstructing of racism. In addition to the student trustees, I just want to acknowledge the student voice that we heard out of Ursula Franklin Academy in Ward 7. Many of those students who are enrolled in the course shared personal accounts of their learning and their growth through the course, and they advocated for increased accessibility for TDSB students. They were so invested in this motion that they let me know that they actually watched the video of our May 10th committee meeting in class. And I think they'll be watching this one as well. So I just want to reiterate that in that committee meeting, I had shared some really powerful words from one of the students, Amara Chukwu. And she spoke about the immeasurable impact of this course and how it has helped students develop their critical consciousness and create positive dialogue around Blackness. In addition to those students, I really just want to express gratitude to the scholars and the community and elected officials who have all contributed and supported the motion, including folks here from the Center of Excellence for Black Student Achievement and our Black Student Achievement Advisory Committee, as well as my colleagues in the room and online. Thank you for your consideration and support.
Thank you very much. And with that, I think we can open the vote on this item. Oh, my apologies. I thought we had, no. Okay, can we have a mover and a seconder? Okay, and this is on behalf of our student trustees, I gather. Okay, thank you very much. It is trustees Dawson and King. We will open the vote. Just give us a moment for that to come up.
I'm in favor, Madam Chair.
It is a recorded, this is a recorded vote.
Sriskandarajah in favor.
Hassan in favor. Trustee Ghost in favor.
Trustee Pay, how do you vote?
Trustee Pay in favor.
Thank you. Are we missing any? And that has carried unanimously, 22-0. Wonderful. Okay, thank you very much. And we are now moving on to item number 15.55. This is the Finance, Budget, and Enrollment Committee Special Meeting Report, number 8 of May 23rd, 2023. I will just remind everybody that when we do this report, we're doing the whole report together, not item by item. So I'm going to turn it over, looks like, to Associate Director Zucker. Please go ahead.
Thank you. And as the chair indicated, I'm going to be going through the entire report. And so there were three different items last night. So the first one was the updated projected financial position. So on February 15th, there was a report presented to FBEC that showed a deficit of 61 million. We added back 2.3 million with the SBSMs. So our starting point for our projected deficit was 63.3 million. As we looked at the changes in the revenues and expenses, since February 2003, we looked at all of the GSN that was calculated as a result of it being released. And the other revenue, our staffing costs, other costs, and one-time interest revenue. And the net difference was 1.6 million from February until yesterday. So just highlights of those changes would be that the GSN revenue and the estimated staffing costs increases included $1 per hour increase for education workers and a 1.25% increase in teacher salaries. It also included in the expenditures for staffing replacement costs, and that those have been increased by 12.5 million from the current year budget. So those are the significant changes from February 15th. So that means we started at 63.3 million. We had a change in revenues and expenses from the original projection of 1.6. So that got us to 61.7 million. And then as a result of the approved school-based staffing reductions of 9.4 million, we were at a revised deficit of 52.3 million. So in addition, last night, business arising from this report, there was a motion that that was approved that we did defer to pause the motion related to implementing and adding back the aquatic instructors to ensure full programming for students in all schools with pools for 23-24. And as per the staff report, that would mean the addition of 6 aquatic instructors. So it was presented at that it would require 6 aquatic instructors would be required to ensure that all schools return to full programming, and that would equal $400,000 addition to the 23-24 budget. The second business arising was that the allocation of an additional 8 full-time equivalent positions of secondary vice principals for 23-24 school year be added, and that was approved. And these secondary vice principals will be funded by one-time funds carried forward from previous years that will not impact the updated financial position as of 23-24. The next report that we discussed was our projected options to balance the 23-24 budget. So when we looked at all of our options, we had a proposal of a reduction in central staff totaling 5.6 million that equated to 44 central teachers and 5 centrally assigned principals. We had $1.4 million related to the discretionary budget for central departments, and that was just over a 5% decrease in the discretionary spending of the central departments. We talked about general interest courses, which included courses like pizza making, calligraphy, certain dance classes that are offered to adults. And we do have a policy that says that these courses should break even. Currently, we're losing approximately $600,000. So staff is suggesting that we look at ways to balance this, which would include increases in fees, and also looking at enrollment thresholds where we would have those thresholds to operate the courses. We also looked at other grants that have been carried forward. During COVID, there were a number of grants that we were unable to spend that are enveloped and carried forward from year to year. We want to ensure that we're maximizing the spending of these grants, or spending of budget related to these grants. We also want to look for possible efficiencies through things like our continuing education program to ensure that we are maximizing or being as efficient as possible. And by doing that, we expect that we can find about $4 million. We talked about pausing our device deployment. So we always purchase devices for the next year in the summer, meaning that if we pause the 23-24 device deployment budget, we would be deferring the decision related to 24-25 until the 24-25 budget. And again, that would give staff some time to look at different ways of deploying and ensuring that we provide devices to students that need them, and making sure that we are providing, again, the right number of devices. The last thing that we looked at was the use of proceeds of disposition. And we incur costs right now as a result of having excess capacity, meaning that we have more spaces available in our schools than we have students. And because of the moratorium on school closures, we are unable to close schools to be able to address that excess capacity. So what that means is we know that to operate a school, it costs pretty much the same, whether you have a full student, so if it's a $500 or 500 student school, if you have 500 students or 300 students, it costs approximately the same to operate the school, yet the funding obviously is different. So we did used to receive a top-up grant from the ministry in order to recognize this need, and that started to be phased out in 2015-16, and it's fully phased out now. At the same time, the province started the moratorium on school closures, so we lost the ability to be able to address the way to help ourselves to have the right number of pupil places. Therefore, we are suggesting that we ask the ministry for use of proceeds of disposition to offset the operating costs associated with keeping schools open, that we would be able to close if the moratorium were not in place. So with all of those options to balance, it totals just over 32.5 million. So we, if we look at our starting point of 52.3, we get to a projected deficit of about 20 million. We are required to submit a balanced budget per Section 231 of the Education Act. And under that regulation, we can have, excuse me, up to a 1% deficit, and that would be approximately 28 million for our board. However, in 22-23, when the board had a 1.4% deficit, we did receive and require and receive approval from the ministry for the deficit. But as part of that approval, we provided a 3-year deficit recovery plan. 23-24 is the second year of that 3-year plan, and the plan committed TDSB to a $15.1 million deficit for 23-24. So therefore, we would require approximately 4.5 additional reductions in order to balance the budget if we were to implement all of those options. So the board did provide a list, staff provided a list of TDSB programs in areas that are either not funded or not fully funded. It totaled $185.9 million. In some instances, the board can control or has control over providing those services. In some instances, the board doesn't. And one of those instances is statutory benefits. So we do know, and we've talked about it, and we have a motion related to statutory benefits. And so just a reminder to trustees that we spend $29.8 million on CPP and EI. Over the last 5 years, that's been the increase in CPP and EI. There have been no corresponding increases in GSN. So therefore, we have no control over those expenses, and yet we have not received any additional funding. As part of that, the next report was the elementary vice principal allocation update. In that report, staff recommended the addition of 10 elementary vice principals and indicated that the placement of these vice principals, if approved, would be using the following guiding principles: a loss of a VP from COVID funding removal, community context, including LOI and local challenges, serious safety concerns over the past 1 or 2 years, academic achievement needs, school belonging and culture, and multiple school staff reductions. The 10 VPs would be funded from one-time carry forward funding, and therefore there would be no impact on the projected deficit. As a result of that report, the following motion was passed: that an allocation of additional 20 full-time equivalent positions of elementary vice principals for the 23-24 school year be approved. That increase of 10 will increase the projected deficit by 1.4 million. So that would get us at about 21 million that would be required to balance the budget to zero, or about 6 million in order to get to the 15. So through the chair, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much for that report. Trustee Laskin, please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can staff remind us when the next opportunity to have a further discussion at FBEC will occur, and then when the vote is scheduled to take place? Thank you.
Thank you. And through the chair, as part of the regular FBEC meeting on June 1st, which is next Thursday, there is another report to further discuss the options to balance. And so that's where we would look at finding additional options to get us to the 15.1 million that was committed to in the deficit recovery program. Then there would be public consultation for the week of June 5th, and further feedback to FBEC, to special FBECs on the 12th, which would be delegations, and the 13th, which would be a special FBEC meeting to discuss the feedback. The 20th, June 20th at FBEC is when the final budget would be presented to FBEC, and the budget is scheduled to be approved by a special board meeting on June 22nd.
Thank you.
Okay, up next we have Trustee Sriskandarajah. Please go ahead.
Thank you. I just have one question to the Associate Director through the Chair. You made a comment that schools that have 300 students, or whether they have 300 or 500, we spend the same amount. Could you elaborate on that for the public?
Thank you, and through the chair, what I'm referring to is the operating costs. So meaning things like utilities, general maintenance, and caretaking, for example. So all of the costs associated with keeping the school up and running are relatively the same, whether the school is full or at half capacity.
Through the chair, but would the size of the school make a difference?
Through the chair, usually a larger school would have additional or higher costs associated with it. And I think if the school was fully, if the enrollment equaled the capacity, then we would be funded for that entire school based on the enrollment. But if we do not have full enrollment in the school, then we don't have enough funding to be able to support the operations.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions or comments from. Okay, thank you, Trustee McLean. Go ahead.
Sorry, thank you, through the chair. Can the Associate Director share how the GSN is formulated in terms of, is it just a general formula, or do we get funded based on the amount of students in our board?
Thank you, and through the chair. So the GSN is mainly based on an amount that we receive per pupil. So the number of pupils that we have in the board would help to determine the funding that we receive for the most part.
Thank you. And through the chair, does that same philosophy then go to how much we're allocated for in areas to fund the education for students with special education needs?
Thank you, and through the chair. Special education, there are a number of components to the funding. More than half of it is associated with the enrollment of the board, so does not depend on the number of special education or the number of students receiving special education support, but there are components of the grant that do take into account demographic factors associated with the board.
Thank you. And a last follow-up through you, Madam Chair. Can you just remind me, please, how much next year we're projected to spend higher than this current funding formula provides us in the area of special education funding?
Through the chair, I'll turn to Associate Director Srisco.
Thank you. And through the chair to Trustee McLean, I'll leave the amount to Associate Director Zucker. I think it is around $70 million. But what I wanted to articulate about the special education grant is that it is an incremental grant, Trustee McLean. So one identity of our students receiving special education supports is that they have special education needs, but they are also main students of the board who may and must be benefiting from all of the other grants. So it is not an expectation that that is the only grant supporting students with special education needs, if that's some helpful context for you. Thank you.
Can I pass the chair to you, Vice Chair Shen? Thank you. I also notice in this report that one of the things where we are spending considerably more than we are given money on is school safety and safe and caring. And I know this is an area where we've certainly around this boardroom table, as well as in many other forums, talked about the importance of supporting our students coming out of the pandemic. And talking about how it's really important that we're working together with all levels of government. I know there has been a small increase in funding from the provincial government on this. I just wonder if staff could expand a little bit on why we have such a large overspend on this and whether this added increase, where that fits into this.
Thank you very much. Through the chair, I will make a few remarks and then ask Executive Superintendent Spiropoulos to add his comments as well. So through the chair, the Toronto District School Board offers a range of preventative and supportive programs for students, including alternatives to suspension. We have specific staff, school-based safety monitors. We've made current investment in child and youth counselors and additional social workers to support a range of needs that have been articulated to us by students, by staff, and by families. All of the additional supports help to create a caring adults for students that they can go to when there are issues that are impacting them and perhaps have impact on their own personal safety, as well as the safety of other students and of staff It is these types of investments that we have asked the Ministry of Education to consider for additional funding in the Toronto District School Board. This is very consistent with our report on our collaborative approach to school and student safety and well-being. For more specifics around the supports provided to students directly through programming, I will now turn to Executive Superintendent Sparopoulos.
Thank you, Director Russell Rollins, and through the chair. Chair, the Director of Education, I think, provided a good summary. I think it's important to note for your information that one of the most significant costs related to caring in safe schools are school-based safety monitors, which are a big addition to our expenses. You may recall when we had a seminar early in the fall that we talked a lot about the number of school-based safety monitors that are in the system and the fact that school-based safety monitors were typically placed in secondary schools, but have now found their way in almost all of our middle schools as well. That's a significant expense. And in fact, we know that when we respond to many of the serious, sometimes catastrophic incidents that we've had in our schools, one of the things that principals ask us for almost all the time is an additional school-based safety monitor. That's not to say that SBSMs are the answer to these types of issues, but I think it's important to note that that is such a significant investment that TDSB makes in support of safety in schools. I think it's also important to note that TDSB is the only board in the province that doesn't assign teacher supervision as part of a teacher's regular school day. So principals don't have the option of assigning teachers to supervision each and every day as part of their schedule, although they do have that option when extenuating circumstances occur. So for us to have the level of supervision that is necessary in schools, SBSMs have been the answer in some instances. I think it's also important to note that caring in safe schools is divided into a number of different areas. And there is an area that is clearly identified as support for schools. That's where our centrally assigned principals live, if you will, along with our caring and safe school advisors, who many of you have met in different ways and in different situations. And then we have a program side. And the program side at any one time has about 600 students or so. And when you add the number of students who come in and out of those programs during the course of a year, we've said that it's well over 1,000. That makes caring and safe programs among the biggest schools in all of TDSB. And those programs have to be staffed and resourced appropriately. And in fact, we at times have to go beyond what a regular school would be staffed at because of the needs of the students who are in the programs. I'm sure you've seen the Caring and Safe School report and you know what the identities and the exceptionalities connected to the identities of the students that are in a lot of these programs. That requires educational assistance, requires psychologists, social workers, child and youth workers, child and youth counselors, ed assistants, to ensure that when students become involved in issues that necessitate student discipline and where students wind up in program, all of those supports have to be in place to assist those students to continue with their learning. Those supports in those types of programs aren't necessarily or specifically funded by the ministry. So in essence, what you have happening is, aside from our supervision needs, we have programs which require deep and intensive support. And it's almost like having an entire school that we have to pay to support. So I hope that gives a little bit of a picture as to where we are at. I haven't spoken about the incidents of community violence, which have found their way into our schools over the course of the last period of time. which also adds to the costs as well. I think those reports related to collaborative approach to school and community safety have come before you. And I'm glad to answer any more questions if you have them. And I want to thank the director for her introductory remarks as well. They're bang on.
Thank you. I'll see the chair back to Trustee Chernuslan.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Arts, you're next.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to revisit the some of our unfunded costs through the budget. So what staff have listed here that stands out for certain is the $47.3 million in statutory benefits and replacements costs. And these are, as staff mentioned, for things like the increases in CPP and employment insurance that are outside our control. I know there's a number of other costs. That's just one area. A number of other costs, like the benchmark funding for salaries across our different employee divisions that are set outside of our board, but cost us additional money. So I wonder if staff could flesh out for us what kind of things we could be paying for. What's an equivalent in staff to that $47.3 million? That's a lot of money that could be used to support our students. I know if you want to put it in equivalents of teachers or programs. I know one thing that comes up year after year are types of professional support staff like child and youth workers or other mental health and well-being supports that we would put in place. So I was wondering if staff could flesh out a bit more what kind of programs and supports carrying adults in classrooms that or in schools that we could be paying for with that kind of money.
Thank you. And through the chair, I can speak to it in terms of teaching staff, just using the average salary. We would be looking at about 430 teachers. And we can do that with other staff as well, depending on the average salary used, but that would be one of the largest. So it would just increase that number if we were looking at other staff.
Thank you very much. Through the chair, if I may add, there are a range of staff, many of whom are mentioned by the trustee within the question. As we think about the needs that have been exhibited throughout the pandemic to now of our students, we know that we certainly could add additional education staff, teachers, mental health supports to get to some of the ratios that were mentioned earlier by Trustee Sriskandaraja in her public health report put forward by the Toronto Youth Cabinet. So those ratios are not ratios that we are currently at with regards to the number of professional support staff and students. We are loath to continue to fill gaps that should be addressed by the province in terms of addressing the needs of students with special education needs, but we certainly could continue to augment staffing supports to those students. We could invest in more preventative programming through our own staff and with community partners. We could hire additional arts and music staff so that all of our young people in elementary schools could have the opportunity for to be taught by someone who has additional qualifications in these areas where they do not. I could go on, Chair, if you would like me to.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, just looking around the room. I'm not seeing any further questions, so we can open the vote on this item, I believe. Oh, we need a mover and a seconder. My apologies. Trustee. Thank you, Trustee Sriskandaraja. We will open the vote. Trustees Gose, Hassan, and Hastings, please. How do you vote? Trustee Hastings, how do you vote? Trustee Pay, Trustee Patel, how do you vote?
Trustee Jost in favor.
Patel in favor. Trustee Pay in favor.
Thank you. We will close the vote. And that has carried unanimously. We are now at item number 17, which is adjournment. Trustee Lilka Rotman, so great to have you back. And I saw another hand flip. Trustee Laskin, all in favor?
Aye.
Note, it is 9:30 on the dot. Well done, everybody. Thank you very much to everyone working behind the scenes to make this such a seamless meeting.
I can't believe it's 9:30 and it's over.
Yeah, I'm shocked too.